what I've seen in the last year, if not just the last 9 months, is the marketing aspect has changed dramatically from this SEO concept to ChatGPT. Now people are punching into ChatGPT, who's the best divorce lawyer in Mississippi, or who's the best whatever. And ChatGPT is giving an answer, an educated answer, not one based on who buys clicks and not one based on other things, a search of authority out there, and it's giving an answer. And now 90% of my business is coming from ChatGPT. People punch into ChatGPT, who's the best, and I'm being told by the people who hire me, I said, what made you call me? Well, I punched best divorce lawyer in Mississippi into ChatGPT, and they said, you were it.
Hi, and welcome to Main Street AI, the podcast where traditional businesses are quietly revolutionizing their operations with artificial intelligence and winning. In this podcast, I sit down with industry leaders to explore their AI journey. We dive into the opportunities they see, the challenges they're navigating, and the real impact of AI on their industries. Whether you're AI curious or ready to implement, this show brings you insights from leaders who are actually using this technology to serve customers better, empower employees, and drive profitable growth. Mark Chinn has been practicing law since 1978. He's the founder of Chinn and Associates, a statewide Mississippi family law practice, the author of 4 American Bar Association books on family law and practice management, and a relentless systems thinker who went from grinding steel in a factory to arguing before the United States Supreme Court. Now, after nearly 5 decades of practice, he's making the most aggressive AI investment of anyone we've had on this show. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome back to the Main Street AI podcast. This is Stephen with Satori Coach IO. Today I'm joined by Mark Chinn of Chinn and Associates. Mark, thanks so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Please go ahead and give us an overview from a high level of what you do with your firm.
I have a statewide Mississippi family law practice. Family law is unique in one sense, and that is that you can really only practice in the state that you're licensed in. So our practice does not branch outside of Mississippi, but we do work throughout the entire state of Mississippi. Of course, there can be interstate and international issues. I have a case right now with a client in Abu Dhabi, another one that was in New Zealand, but the cases themselves, the work that I do takes place here. There are international law specialists that go all over the world, but our practice is focused in Mississippi, but statewide. I started law practice in May of 1978. I have varied experience over my career, which I think has really helped me deliver a full range of service to people in divorce at this point in time. I started out working for the Mississippi Senate Judiciary Committee, drafting legislation and advising senators and the lieutenant governor. Then worked for the Attorney General's Office of Mississippi, handling criminal appeals. And for 14 months, all I did was read trial transcripts, research, and write about the errors that the trial attorneys had made, therefore asking the Supreme Court to not reverse convictions that were obtained. And so that year of experience taught me the real basics of how to properly conduct a trial, how to properly create a record for appeal. It also taught me how to research well and to write. So those are great foundations for a young lawyer to start practice. I then went into a defense law firm for a year and learned how the defense industry worked, and then went into a general private practice for about 6 years. And I joke that I have been in every court from a cinder block justice court in Mendenhall, Mississippi, all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I've been in all of those courts, and I did that while I was in that general practice. In 1988, after 10 years of working for other people, I realized that no one was ever going to give me what I wanted, and that I had to go out on my own and take it, whatever it was going to be. When you get to that point, you've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to say, this is what I'm going to do, hell or high water. I'm willing to fail, but I'm going to do my own deal. Not a lot of people can get to that place. It took me 10 years to get to that place, but once I did, I jumped off the cliff and went on my own on July 1, 1988. I started a general practice doing everything that walked through the door. My motto was send it to me. I turned trash into cash. And so I just did whatever I could. One of the things that really struck me as I started my own business, and maybe you and others listening to this can sympathize with this or understand it, was I had no idea that people would help me. I didn't realize that other lawyers would try to help me, even lawyers that I didn't know that well would send me business. Now, they didn't send me the best business or business they wanted, but they sent me things that helped me start my practice and get going. And so I believe very firmly that everyone who operates a business should always understand that you're only going to go as far as the community around you wants you to. And so um, that was very a positive thing for me to see that people wanted to help me. I didn't see that coming. But anyway, for a number of years, I operated on my own, and then I sought the help of a law practice management coach in about 1989 or 1990. The Mississippi Bar had a program where they offered this coach out of Memphis as a contractor to come and coach people. And so the first thing that he asked me was, what kind of work did I do? And I said, well, I do everything. And he said, well, how can we tell what you really do? And I said, well, I don't know. I didn't have any real records. And so I thought, well, we can look at my bank deposits. So he got out my deposit book and he said, okay, Johnson, $3,000. What's that? And I said, oh, that's a divorce. And then, making a long story short, we went through all the deposits, all the different kinds of cases I was working on. And we got done, he looked up at me and he said, Mark, you're a divorce lawyer.
Right.
I said, oh, no, not that. Because in that era, specializing in divorce, certainly in Mississippi, was a very rare thing. And divorce was not something that people really wanted to do a lot of because it's very difficult work. It's emotional, it's trial work, and it's family things that have very emotional and psychological aspects to it. It's difficult work. But so he said, you must specialize. I said, I don't want to specialize. I want to do everything. He said, no, you must specialize. So I began the process of narrowing my practice, and then some years later, I literally sent back every corporate case I had, every contract client I had, every type of other client I had, and said, I'm only doing divorce. And while my business had done well as a general practice, the moving to specialization basically helped my reputation and my business skyrocket because there were not a lot of people specializing in divorce at the time. And so it allowed me to stand out among the tens of thousands of lawyers that there are in Mississippi, as people could identify me that way. So that's how I got started specializing in divorce, and so that's all we do.
Yes, that's a pretty familiar story about starting kind of as a generalist and then eventually seeing the wisdom of niching down. So yeah, that's quite a story though in terms of that broad range of experience you had. Really interesting. Um, Sadly, I've been through this process myself. As you mentioned, it's very difficult on the families. What I like to ask attorneys in their different areas, what advice would you give to those who aren't on your side of the fence? A lot of times that's thinking from the perspective of a prospective client who might be coming into this situation, things that they might not know otherwise. What advice would you give?
The number one thing that people out there need to know is this. If you're worried that you need to talk to a lawyer, you do. So often people worry and worry and worry that they need to talk to a lawyer, and they don't, because I think that people feel if they talk to a lawyer, things are going to cascade downward, and that some line has been crossed. In a way, if you're in a marriage and you do see a lawyer, there is sort of a trust break that people are going to feel. But the truth of the matter is that I can maybe help save a marriage. I can maybe help keep the damage from getting too great if I'm consulted early on in the process. So if you're worried you need a lawyer, you do, and you need to go see someone. That's the number one thing. And uh, in terms of saving marriages, there may be some lawyers out there who take the philosophy, I do everything I can to convince people not to divorce. I don't do that. I am a fan of marriage. I've been married for 48 years. For me, it's been the greatest thing of my life. So I believe in marriage, but I don't believe in a marriage that holds people back or that keeps them from fulfilling their full potential in life. So I do recall one businessman that came to see me fairly early on in his discontent with his life, and he was very successful and talked about his business a lot and talked about how his marriage was failing. And I said to him, when you get up in the morning, you're thinking about your business, aren't you? He said, yes. And I said, all day long, you're working on your business, aren't you? And developing your connections and developing your skills and throwing yourself 100% into your skills and your connections and your marketing. He said, yes. And I said, probably when you go home at night, it's staying with you, and you probably even like roll around in bed thinking about your business. And he said, right. I said, and that's one of the reasons you're successful, right? And I said, all right, where in that scenario did you mention your wife? And so what happens is, and so I said, and a look of enlightenment came across his face. I said, have you thought about what might happen in your marriage if you gave that same energy you give your business to your marriage? If you turned your marriage into your number one priority instead of your business, well, while of course still paying attention to your business. And so that saved that man's marriage. And so that can happen. It's relatively rare. But I have consulted with others on how to save the marriage. And I do have a process that I investigated with counselors on what might be the best way to try and rehabilitate a marriage. The second major advice that just has to be sung from the mountaintops is to watch what you say and do and post. Our divorce cases today have turned into putting on reams of evidence from texting, from emails, from social media posts. You would not believe the nasty things that people will text each other and say to each other or say about their relationship or about their marriage. And then every bit of that is usually saved somewhere. And so it really doesn't become the old he said, she said. I mean, it's documented that someone has said these terrible things. And I have cases where I've kind of built almost entire cases against the other side based upon their Facebook or other social media posts. And so I remember in 1982, I was working for a defense lawyer, and I was going to send a very nasty letter to someone, and he got a hold of her and he said, Mark, never write anything that you are not willing to have posted on the front of the Clarion Ledger, which was the Jackson newspaper at the time, which at the time had a big circulation. He said, never write anything you're not willing to have posted on the front of that paper. And what I tell people that today, and then I say, however, in today's world, never say, act, be anywhere, or do anything at any time that you're not willing to have the whole world see on the internet. This is the life we lead today. Every move is filmed somewhere. Every communication, uh, last night, my wife picked up a iPad that I don't use, and she logged in and she says, "Oh, I see your texts here." And I said, "You would not believe how many guys get caught having affairs because they don't realize that their texts are going to some other computer in the house."
Right.
And so you just have to be in today's environment. It's very scary how much you have to monitor your conduct and understand that you are being watched, tracked, filmed by somewhere, somebody, somehow. And that's something that people should always realize. And I would hope that people would monitor their conduct and monitor the language they use, not only because it's probably being recorded in some way, but because it's right. It just doesn't do any good to talk that way to people. And so I tell my clients, all right, the next time you want to say something, the next time you want to write something, ask yourself, is what I'm about to say or write going to advance my position or take me away from my position? And usually attacking someone personally is not going to help you advance your position with that person, usually.
That's right. And especially staggers staggers me and just blows my mind that people will take this onto public social media. I know it's one thing with texting, which you said, can also be used in evidence, but a lot of times people don't think about that until after the fact. But I have no idea what possesses people to to go onto Facebook or something and start just ranting about a spouse or whatever. It's unreal. Um, but excellent advice. And I thought that was very interesting as well when you mentioned that you've actually been proactive enough to talk to get advice from counselors on how to actually try and save marriages as well. That's very noble coming from the fact that your business is based on representing people getting divorced.
Well, I wrote, this is some years ago, but I wrote every single licensed professional counselor in Mississippi. And I said, I'm a divorce lawyer, but I would like to know if you have advice on what I can tell people if they want to try and reconcile. What do you think is the best method? And so actually, it's not a very complicated plan that I have come up with. It rarely works and it's rarely done properly. But my prescription is when you get to a point where your marriage is just really having trouble, I recommend a controlled separation for 6 months where you separate, you agree not to see other people, you agree to have each go to counseling individually and to have a third counselor to counsel you on your marriage to who so that way each person has an advocate, so to speak, for their own development, and then there's a third person that is an advocate for the marriage. And so the problem is that when people do try that, after 2 or 3 weeks, they think, oh, well, we're fine. And then they get back together and they have 2 or 3 weeks of great sex. And then it all breaks down again because they haven't changed anything.
Yeah, yeah,
And so if you keep doing the same thing, it's not going to change. So that's what I recommend, and uh, happens very rarely. But when I think it's appropriate, I'll recommend it.
yeah. Great advice, though. I'll swing over to our portion of the conversation where we start to get into the technology aspect. Um, Lots of changes rapidly accelerating here in the legal domain with AI and emerging technology. What sort of trends are you seeing? How are you thinking about it and even potentially using it?
Uh, I've been a part of a major coaching group for 25 years. It's called Atticus out of Orlando, Florida, and they coach lawyers all over the country, maybe the world. And I was one of their first clients, and um, I'll never forget the founder, Mark Powers, telling our group in the year 2000. This is going to sound funny. He said, "Guys, I don't know where this internet thing is headed, but I'm begging you, work on your websites." And so I took heed and went to work and had a good staff member here who helped me and went to work on a good website and investigated what. And then, of course, the concept of SEO came along. And so I learned early on that SEO functions best with what they call original content instead of just loading up your website with statutes and cases and any other information you can dig up, thinking you're creating content to actually generate original content, things that you write and things that you create. And so we did that. And as a matter of fact, I personally wrote descriptions of all the different aspects of Mississippi law on divorce, on prenuptial agreements, and modifications and contempt and child custody and support. I wrote all of that. And then we followed those with videos of me discussing basically what I had written on each of the topics. And so we loaded the website over time with those kinds of materials and developed pretty good content and a pretty good SEO presence. I used to tell, I've talked for years and years to lawyers all over the world about marketing, and I can remember coaching lawyers on how to present the business card. And actually, if you're curious, the way to present a business card is to always present it with two hands. Always hold the business card out with two hands. And the reason you do that is that when you hold something out with two hands, that means it's important. And then if you're taking the business card, take it with two hands as though it's important, and then look at it and say, my, what a unique business card you have here. And so that was person to person marketing was the thing of the past. And so I used to tell people that 60% of my cases come from lawyers in town who work in the big firms who don't do what I do. Another 20% come from satisfied clients, and another remaining percent come from people who hear about me from different sources. And so the personal marketing, the advertising, becoming involved in bar things was really critical back in those days. With SEO, it started to change. And so with SEO, even some lawyer who had no basic personal reputation could leap to the forefront of marketing by buying, a position on the SEO map or whatever you call those things, and by buying clicks and things like that. And so marketing changed along the way there. 2 years ago or so, when I first saw this ChatGPT stuff, I have a young associate who's 35 and brilliant and technologically able, much more than me. And my daughter is a young lawyer working at a big law firm. And I told them both, I said, I don't know what this AI thing is, but if I were you, I'd become an expert in it. Interesting thing, law firms initially had rules preventing you from using it because they were scared of it. But my attitude is you may be scared of it, there may be danger there, but if you don't jump into this with all 4 feet, you're going to get left way behind. So we started doing what we could with AI, and And let me just touch on marketing and then move into what we're trying to do with AI in the business. What I've seen in the last year, if not just the last 9 months, is the marketing aspect has changed dramatically from this SEO concept to ChatGPT. Now people are punching into ChatGPT, who's the best divorce lawyer in Mississippi, or who's the best whatever. And ChatGPT is giving an answer, an educated answer, not one based on who buys clicks and not one based on other things, a search of authority out there, and it's giving an answer. And now 90% of my business is coming from ChatGPT. People punch into ChatGPT, who's the best, and I'm being told by the people who hire me, I said, what made you call me? Well, I punched best divorce lawyer in Mississippi into ChatGPT, and they said you were it. And so I've talked to my tech people. I said, I don't know what we're doing, but this is successful right now. We got to stay there. So it's the ChatGPT. It has overtaken, in my opinion, all other forms of marketing. But it may be that the reason why I'm showing up on ChatGPT is all the personal work I did before SEO and all the work I did with SEO now is allowing me to show up on ChatGPT. So that to me has really leaped out that these people are telling me ChatGPT is how I found you. From the standpoint of utilizing AI, we have been in the fall. I had a tech guy. We created something called Mark's Robot, and I have a process called the marital assessment. I firmly believe that the first hour of representation in a family law case, and probably in almost any case, is that first hour. That time when the lawyer finds out what the facts are, tells the client what some of the laws are pertaining to their case, tells the client what some of the options are, and possibly charts a course of action. It's very important that that all be done right at the very beginning, because a wrong direction from the very beginning can affect everything down the road. So I created an assessment process where I give the client a full report stating all which I just said, and then laying out a case plan. We charge flat fees, and so it lays out pricing options for different phases of the work, and then also a lump sum. And so that takes a ton of work to generate that. So we plug the assessments that I've done for the last 2 years into this ChatGPT robot, along with my writings and some of my procedures that I have created and put in books. We put all that into this robot, and now I can generate in literally 10 minutes. I take a transcription of the assessment, plug that into ChatGPT, and then I spend, 5 or 10 minutes typing what I want it to emphasize, what I want it to say, what I want it to lay out. It's my language, and then it's supposed to be intuitive, right? Which means it learns me, and it can literally spit out. It can digest multiple documents, hundreds of pages that I might plug into it, along with a transcript of an hour talk or call, and generate an assessment that's detailed in terms of the facts, the law, the options, the pros, the cons, and a case plan exactly like I would have created over the course of several hours. It does it in literally 10 minutes. All right? And I guess everybody on this call knows the capabilities of AI now, but I had an idea the other day that I would like to plug all the appellate cases that I've been involved in on my website, just so people can see that I have appellate experience and maybe see that I've created some law. So a law student sent me within about 30 minutes every single case that I've ever been involved in on an appeal. And it was about 100, but 50 of them were domestic cases. And so I plugged those 50 domestic cases, and these are cases of 2 to 10 to 20 pages long. I plugged them into ChatGPT and I said, please generate a summary of each one of these cases along with a case site and a year for me to describe my appellate work. It literally spit that thing out in 30 seconds. I don't know how it does that. And so my associate, my partner, Janaea, she uses it to plug emails and fax in to generate requests for admissions and interrogatories. She uses it to create trial cross-examination and direct. And it's I have joked, and I don't think it's a joke. I have some meta glasses, so I can foresee being in court wearing meta glasses, filming what's going on in court, and having meta listening and then coaching me on what to say next. I mean,
Yeah, you absolutely will because
possibilities are just beyond endless.
right.
Of
Yeah, I
of
mean
what
we have tech where there's multiple ones that's really well though for people that are doing, for instance, sales calls and not only getting the analysis for improvement, very granular analysis after the fact, but actually now having exactly what you're talking about, live feedback and coaching during the process of the sales call. So what you're talking about is absolutely, I think, on the horizon. So
we some months ago went to having our phone answered by AI.
mhm.
Her name is Alex, and we have trained her, and she's intuitive, so she learns about us and how we want things handled. And we are now working to not only let her answer the calls, but to actually set up appointments with me and get payment and send people all the contract and all the other documents that we want them to have before an initial assessment. All of that is handled 24/7. I mean, it'll be handled at 3 o'clock on Christmas Eve morning, and it'll all be automatic and it'll all be accurate. Of course, you got to pay attention to it like you do anybody else. Um, so we're working on that, and we are now 2 weeks away. We've been working for months on trying to become 100% AI operated here in the firm. So we're taking the concepts we use with the robot, where I input information and say what I want. Now, using multiple agents, we're going to have everything operated through AI, everything from the calendar to emails to document preparation to case management. There are AI agents, aren't there, that manage projects, and so we'll have an AI agent managing our case projects and reminding us of when to do things. As a part of that process, I've written 4 books for the American Bar Association, all on family law, and mostly on how to practice law. And so we've plugged all those books into, excuse me, this, what I call it my AI brain. Plugged all those books. I have 100 checklists. I have 100 forms. We've plugged all those in. And so hopefully this AI, along with the agents, will, instead of me looking at my email and then saying, okay, well, I got to go over here and look at these documents, and then saying, okay, I got to go over here and assemble a document. Okay, I got to go over here to my case management system and plug this thing in to make sure I'm reminded. It's my opinion that I'll be able to type into the AI system a question or whatever, and it will do all that looking for me instantaneously. And so I'll be able to operate at more than warp speed and have a reminder system that is the case management systems that we've been operating on for the last 20, 25 years have been great, but this is going to far exceed anything that they do.
Um,
And we are custom building it because I'm spending a lot of money to custom build it. I think a lot of firms are doing this, but I'm custom building it because I think technology is changing by the hour. I want to be able to change with it.
Yeah, very smart. Right. This is this is exactly what we talk to people all the time about, like not just having some siloed tools here and there, but actually having a fully integrated system. It's night and day. Um, when I'm going to pivot over to just go a little bit deeper into the business now. Um, what would you say you do at your firm exceedingly well that sets you apart from others in your particular field?
Commitment to systems, commitment to service. Um, I read a book some 25 years ago at the encouragement of this Atticus coaching group called The E-Myth Revisited, Michael Gerber. Absolutely profound book for me in terms of learning all the things that, see, most lawyers and according to the book, most business people think in terms of, I just want to do my work. I just want to do my work well. And so the book, he calls them technicians. They're good technicians. But to be a very successful deliverer of a product, you have to be a manager and you have to be a marketer. And so one of the things that I really, really recall in the book was talking about delivering unexpected levels of service. And so the motto that we have here is that it's our job as lawyers, we not only know what's going on now, we know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, there may be some variations in how someone acts or how someone responds, but we know what's next. And so our philosophy is answer the client's question before they're asked. If a client asks you a question about what's going on, you're too late. We want our clients to always be assured of where they are. And then when we send them something and say, this is what has happened, we're going to tell them what it means for the future and what might happen in the future. So I call it Ritz-Carlton service. I remember one day I was at a Ritz-Carlton, actually in Puerto Rico, at an ABA meeting. It was a massive place, and I was lost. And I saw somebody in the hallway, I think was some kind of manager, really. And I said, where is the ABA's meeting on such and such? He didn't say, walk down the hall, take a right, take the elevator, go upstairs, walk outside, and it's to your right. He said, let me show you. I will never forget that. And I think that that's the mentality that we want to always bring to our service, that, let us make sure that you feel like you're being led all the way and that you are given the satisfaction of knowledge of what you're in and where you're going, because divorce is just terrifying. It's just hell. And so whatever we can do to help people go through the process with knowledge and with some comfort, we want to do it. Systems is next. I'm a big believer that everything should be systemized. I was raised by a mechanical engineer. He had a process for doing everything. I worked in a factory for 6 years while going to law school and college, grinding steel, and they had a system for how you do everything. And there were two incentives for the system. One is if you followed the system, you might make more money in your day than normal because you were paid on piecework. But number two, you won't cut your hand off if you follow the proper system. So pretty good incentive to follow systems there. And so, and then I add to that, some 25 years ago, I had a personal coach through Atticus. Her name is Sean McNallis, and she was not a lawyer, and I was very skeptical. How can a lawyer coach, a non-lawyer coach a lawyer? And it was simple. We talked weekly, and she would say, how are you? And something was always bothering me, and I'd say, well, I'm mad about blah, 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 blah. She would say, well, what do you think causes that? And I said, well, and I would usually have an answer. And she would say, what system can we put in place to make sure that doesn't happen again? And I think about it, and I said, well, maybe if I did so and so and so and so. She said, that's great. By when will we have, will we have that system in place? I said, well, maybe 2 weeks. Okay, I'll check with you in 2 weeks. And so I learned to evaluate everything that happened in my practice with those questions. And we do everything is preparation in our practice. I've run into many very good lawyers who are great shooting from the hip. I'll always remember F. Lee Bailey questioning in the O.J. Simpson case without a note. Very impressive, but that is not us. When we go to court, it's like a four-act play. Every single move is scripted. Every single move. And when I go to court, in the front page of my trial notebook, as I'm sitting there agonizing about this, that, or the other thing, I'll write down, I was worried about this, or I was worried, or this didn't seem right, or maybe I should have done this. And I would write those things down on the front page of the notebook. And then after the trial, I would go back and look at those things. Most of it's just needless worry, right? But there were some things that, I would note and then change so that that doesn't happen again, so I don't worry about that again or something doesn't go wrong again. So I'm always operating from a standpoint of how can I do this better? How can I put a system in place to do this better? I mean, I have checklists. I have something called an email checklist to keep me from maybe doing a reply all when I shouldn't. Just checklists, what's called a pleadings error checklist to make sure pleading is done correctly. Those things are going to go by the wayside with they go by the wayside a little bit with document assembly, but with this AI thing, I think they're going to the AI will do it for me. So those are the and then finally an aspect to our practices in 2005, I moved to what we call value pricing. A familiar phrase would be flat fees. We offer people the opportunity to pay fixed fees in phases or to pay a one-time lump sum fee to cover everything. And the analogy that I use is, what man would send his wife to the auto repair shop to have her told, okay, we'll put the car up and take a look at it, and then we'll bill you at the end how much time and expense it took us? Who would do that? No one. Why do we do that with legal cases? Why turn a legal case over to a lawyer and just turn him loose to spend time and then send you a bill that you didn't expect? I'm not running them down. I used to do it, and it's probably the way a majority of practice is done now, but the flat fee system, I think, is being adopted by many, many big firms around the world where companies can budget what their legal expense is by a flat fee. So I find that people really, really like the flat fee. They like knowing, and I give people an option of paying in phases or one lump sum, which is usually discounted fairly significantly. And 9 out of 10 times they'll take the big check on one-time lump sum because normally they know they're done, except for some expenses. But we try to estimate those and allocate those in there too. But they know they're done. They know they've paid what they. It's like, how much will it take for you to put a new radiator in for me? $800. Okay, go ahead. I'm satisfied. You know.
Yeah, that's great. In terms of growth for the firm, obviously you've been at this, you've had a great career, you've been
Thank you.
doing this a long time. What stage of growth are you in right now, would you say? And what are you looking as an objective for, say, the next 12-month target?
Um, I read I've always been a goal setter. And then through my coaching, I was coached and held accountable to create a personal and business mission statement, a coach to create 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 year goals, and to monitor those and to write down the ways to meet those goals, as I've always done that. And but my thinking changed a little bit when I read a lot, actually, when I read a book last year called The Science of Scaling. The Science of Scaling. And it talks about setting impossible goals. And I'd never really seen it uh, said that way before, and probably thought, should I set a goal that I really don't think I can get to? Why would I do that? I might not even try if I can't get there. But what if you set an impossible goal and you give yourself really good reasons why you want to get there? Then your mind starts to think of ways to get out of what you are doing to get to this audacious place. And so I have decided that my growth concept is I'm going to double my income each year. So I'm doubling last year's income this year. I'm going to double next year, and I'm going to double the year after that. And I'm going to do that by investing heavily in AI and a couple of good additional people that can help me operate this AI and do this additional business. And so from a growth standpoint, the growth is primarily from the concept of technology, bringing in this AI. I don't feel any danger with the AI because I think everything that we're about to do, it's not like we'll lose something. I don't think we'll lose any data by trying to make this move. I think the only thing that there might be some uncomfortable days as we try to navigate new things, but going to 100% AI is my vision of growth. And staying with and ahead of not only cutting edge of technology. I've had people in the past say, Chin, you're not cutting edge, you're often bleeding edge, which means I sometimes try to do new things before their time and I end up getting cut. But usually what I had in my mind is right. I was just too far ahead of the game. And so I want to take advantage of this incredible technology. I mean, technology that can read 50 cases and summarize them in 10 seconds. I mean, and I think I was inspired, and I don't want to be political here, but I think I was inspired by Doge when I saw how they were taking just unfathomable amounts of information and searching it and coming up with conclusions. I said, oh my God, how can they do that? What are they using? And so they're using AI. And so lawyers are probably, like they are with every other technology, light years behind in terms of using those incredible technologies to search documents, to tell you what to look for, to give you prompts, to research. It's mind-boggling what we can do with it, and we're already doing it, but we're gonna do everything with it.
Yeah, I wish you are right. This is one of the industries that does tend towards laggards in terms of a technology adoption, and I get a little bit less of that in terms of who I have on the podcast because mostly people that are saying like, that sounds like a good idea. Like I'd like to come on the podcast. They're a little more tech forward, but I think there's many attorneys who are half your age or or even less than half your age that should be having the same mindset as you because this is absolutely happening just like the internet happened, but this is actually bigger, so it's more exponential.
Again, I think that what was the phrase some years ago that technology doubles every 18 months, right?
Mhm.
I think it doubles every day.
Yes, it's unreal. Um, so right now you've got a pretty good handle on what you need to do to grow and have these audacious goals. Is there anything that if you had a magic wand and you could just wave it and fix any particular, challenge or limiting constraint right now, is there anything that you would want to fix?
No, I am so much on the verge of doing this new AI, which we excuse me, hope to have up and running by the end of May, so in the next 2 weeks. So ask me 6 months from now.
6 months from
I
now.
want to do it again. I want to do this again. You're great. I want to do this again, and we can talk about how it's working.
Fantastic. Where I always like to end on these podcasts, we've had some great conversation here around. You dropped a lot of wisdom about divorce law, family law, and very proactive with tech. We talked about your business, impossible goals. It's all fantastic. Where I like to end though is just kind of on the personal. Everyone's deeper motivation for what they do every day. What would you say that is for you?
My goal is to provide a service to people where when I'm done, I have given them the option to live the life of their dreams.
How can people best contact you, Mark, to uh, get your expertise and your firm's expertise?
Well, we have a website, chinlaw.com. They contact us through that. Our telephone number is 601-366-4410. If they call that number, they'll talk to Alex, and Alex will set them up. But I like people to go ahead and take a look at my website and see everything that we do, a description of our service. And I'm also very interested in talking to any lawyer anywhere about law practice management, flat fees that we charge. Anybody interested in talking about any of those things, please feel free to contact me at Mark, M-A-R-K, at chinlaw.com, CHINNLAW.com. Love to talk to other lawyers about uh, helping them build a better practice. And I get a lot from talking to other lawyers about what they're doing, and I love doing that.
Fantastic. And that's a very generous offer as well, because clearly you're way ahead on that particular area. So again, thanks so much for coming on, Mark. It was a great conversation. I appreciate
It's a pleasure. Let's do it again in 6 months.
it. Sounds good.